Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. The Swede Midge is a tiny insect that's creating huge problems for vegetable growers in the Northeast. How tiny, you ask? Well, 2 Swede midges fit comfortably inside the eye of a sewing needle, and a single midge isn't much bigger than the head of a pin. Organic growers in New York and Canada have experienced 100% crop loss in kale, cauliflower, cabbage, and broccoli due to this pest. The first case was identified in Vermont in 2006, and it's spreading fast. Swede Midge is often referred to as an invisible pest because by the time farmers find signs of damage, it's just too late. Our guest today is Yolanda Chen. She's been researching this imperceptible pest in the field and in her lab at the University of Vermont. Welcome. It's great to have you here to talk about this kind of scary pest. So you were one of the very first researchers in the United States to investigate this pest. So tell us about the Swede Midge.
Yeah, so I'm not the first one. So definitely a group in Cornell, Tony Shelton and Christy Hoepting have been working on it since year 2000. I started working on this in 2010 because I was approached by a grower, Andy Jones, who's the manager in the Intervale Community Farm. And he was the one that told me about how severe it was, and when I started researching it, I realized how there really weren't very many options for organic growers.
Right. So this is, we've mentioned this devastation. What does that mean for consumers?
Well, so this basically affects the local supply of organic broccoli. And so for growers, customers in northern Vermont, right now you should be able to see broccoli, local broccoli in the stores, and you're not seeing that. And so I've even heard that farmers in northern Vermont are no longer planting broccoli because it's too much of a risk. So that's affecting the supply.
So this is mainly affecting the organic growers and not so much the conventional growers, and why is that?
Well, so conventional growers have some more tools that organic growers do not. Also here in Vermont, especially northern Vermont, we have a lot of organic growers. So it's definitely disproportionately affecting them.
Okay, and it seems like I talked to a farmer the other day who was growing broccolini, who he said that seemed to work okay. So it's kind of spotty around, or he's just trying something else?
Yeah, so definitely the midge is really tiny. It's not a very highly mobile insect. So it's not like it evenly covers the entire state. So that's part of the reason why there's pockets of growers that are able to kind of grow something for a little while. And even though you might have a huge infestation on one farm that's causing 100% losses, you might have another farm that's only seeing like maybe 10% losses that's only 2 miles away.
Wow. So talk about, why is it called invisible?
So the fly itself as an adult is only 2 millimeters in size.
Teeny.
And so you can imagine its eggs are even smaller. So for growers trying to even scout for the pest, you would have to actually cut the broccoli buds and then really dissect them to even try to find the eggs. And even so, that would be really difficult. And then most of the damage shows up after the fly has already left the plant.
Right.
And so that's what makes it really, really challenging to identify it.
Because it's the larvae that are eating it from the inside out almost.
Well, so what the larvae do, so the larvae, so the fly is actually part of the family Cecidomyidae, and these flies are known to manipulate plant growth. So they can cause like these tumor-like growth that's similar. So if you ever see kind of galls on leaves,
right,
those are kind of the product of kind of an insect that has basically made a home for itself. So they have this ability to manipulate plant growth, and that's why it leads to all these deformed, unmarketable produce.
Right. Wow. Well, I know what happened to my broccoli, and it was very sad. So one of the experimental treatments to prevent pests involves disrupting midges from mating. Interesting. And we have Elizabeth Hodgson from Cornell Cooperative Extension to tell us more.
So we call this our push-pull project for Swede Midge management. We call it push-pull because it's using 2 different mechanisms to disrupt the insect and prevent the plants from being damaged. The pull part of it uses pheromones to confuse the males and draw them in and prevent them from mating with the females. And then the push part uses a repellent garlic essential oil that repels the pregnant females so that they don't lay their eggs on the plants.
1, 6,
11.
okay.
We call it an invisible pest because it isn't readily apparent what's going on with the plant because the insects are just so tiny. With a lot of other broccoli pests, you can walk out into the fields, you can see caterpillars chewing, and you know that you can spray them with something. For this pest, often the damage is only apparent after the insects have left the plant. So it can be very difficult to know what's going on and to apply treatments when the time is right. So far, I don't know that we have quite enough data. The broccoli isn't ready to harvest, but I think we'll have a better sense at the end of the season when we're harvesting the broccoli. And what we really want to know is how many nice broccoli heads, marketable broccoli heads do we have in our treated plot versus our untreated plot. We are seeing quite a few damaged plants in our treated plot this year. So we're not really sure how things are going to pan out. We'll have to make a conclusion about that. So over the past few weeks, I've had quite a few different growers contacting me from New York and Vermont, and people have been asking me, what can I do? I've had really bad damage in my broccoli or cauliflower over the summer. What can I do to protect my fall harvest? And one of the most heartbreaking or discouraging things is that I can't really give them a good answer. I mean, there are just so few options for certified organic growers that I don't have a good answer for them. And so I'm happy to be continuing to work on Swede Midge so that I can develop some solutions for these growers. I really enjoy working on problems that are pertinent to the Northeast and that are really important for our local food system and for local growers. So as an extension specialist, I'm working face-to-face with growers almost every day. I'm happy to continue with this research so that I can try to find solutions for them.
Okay, that was great. Before Elizabeth was at Cornell, I just have to go there. She was great. She was a PhD student with you at UVM. That's kind of a great gift when one of your students becomes your colleagues. So how has the collaboration been with her?
It's been great. It's been really wonderful. I mean, I think really for professors, our students are really our legacy. And the really amazing thing is that Elizabeth has a position right in Plattsburgh across the lake from us. So she's with Cornell Cooperative Extension as a vegetable specialist.
But she's working right in Plattsburgh, so she's close to UVM and you and
and so what the cool thing is we can actually do a lot more long-range planning. So typically PhD students are studying only for 5 years and then they're gone and you don't know like where their job
something else
prospects are. And so now we can really start to kind of implement kind of long-term studies together and I can also kind of assist her in getting started too.
Right, it's awesome. So how far is the Swede Midge spread right now?
Yeah, it's actually throughout Canada. It's all the way from British Columbia all the way to Nova Scotia. But it's not causing kind of really high damaging levels everywhere. So it's just been detected in many of those places. Definitely Ontario and Quebec and Saskatchewan now have very high levels of midge populations.
So it's mainly in the north?
In the north, so it's coming down over the northern border. So in New York and Vermont, it's also prevalent, especially on organic farms. And then it's been detected in Maine, Connecticut, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Illinois, Minnesota, and Michigan. So it's definitely kind of getting to be much more widespread.
Well, it sounds, really rather dire. So you've been working on this for 4 years, and at least something like that?
No, it's actually close to 9 years.
Oh, the article I read was just 4 years ago when they noted that you were doing this. So what kind of strategies? We heard about this midge mating and trying to interrupt that. What else? What other management strategies are you using, or can you use, or how are you trying?
Right. Yeah. So let me just say that conventional growers can use systemic insecticides like neonicotinoids, which are taken up by the plant, and then so the midge likes to lay eggs in the top bud. And so that's what kind of allows them to protect their seedlings, and especially in the first 5 weeks. After that, what a lot of the growers are doing is that they're spraying on a weekly basis.
Right.
So organic growers...
Still the
neonicotinoids,
which aren't too bad for humans,
right?
But they have another problem.
Right. So they have been definitely implicated in the decline of honeybees, and so definitely in Europe, they've been targeted for phase out. People are very concerned about that, but that's not something that has been targeted here in the U.S. Right. So, but certainly there's that issue. Then, so organic growers do not have access to systemic insecticides. So what we've done is trying to figure out kind of like basically how do you build a better mousetrap. And one of the key things we realized is that even a single midge, when put onto the plant, can cause deform kind of growth, right, so that it's unmarketable. And so that means like we have to prevent the adults from even contacting and laying eggs on the plant. So that means we've kind of rethought a lot of it. So that's why we've looked at kind of this idea of repellency and using kind of essential oils as repellents. They've been promising definitely in the lab, but one of the issues in the field is that sometimes it seems like perhaps the insects are getting habituated or used to those odors, and so they may not be 100% effective. Then the other thing we've been really focusing on is this idea of pheromone mating disruption, which is what we saw in the video is this idea of using high levels of synthetic pheromone that's produced by the female so that it confuses the males. Now this is something that has to be done on a very large scale. And so we're at the point of we're trying to kind of scale that up and trying to get the money to do that, to test it out.
Okay. Professor Yolanda Chen, thank you for all your work with the Swede Midge, and we hope you're successful soon.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard.